Hello and welcome back to Uncle Venom's Books and Whiskey. I'm Ron Rutstein, your host. Today we're looking at Starward Twofold, an Australian whiskey, and two works by Thomas Keneally, an Australian author. You might notice that we stuck with Australia here to kind of make a relationship. So, let's start with the whiskey. Starward Twofold is not an expensive whiskey. I think it was like $35. And I discovered it on Facebook. Where else do you discover things these days? I saw an Australian whiskey I had never seen before. The price was right, so I ordered a bottle. It wasn't a bad move. Wheat and malted barley. Australian red wine barrels. A very nice combination. Starward Twofold double grain whiskey. Truly Melbourne born and bred. A flavor-forward Australian whiskey matured in Australian red wine barrels. This ambitious expression marries two quintessentially Australian grains, wheat and malted barley, and elementally matures them in Melbourne's intensely reactive climate. Twofold promises to deliver an approachable whiskey with bright aromas of spiced vanilla, tropical fruits, and cereals. A grain is a cereal, so you've always got that, right? The palate is rounded, carrying hints of red apples and berries. The finish is delicate with soft tannins and lingering red fruits. I like the way that they use broad terms to describe things. Red fruits. Cherries are red. They can be almost black. Strawberries are red. Apples can be red. And none of them taste anything like each other. So, red fruits. Is it a combination of them? Who knows? Anyway, I do like this whiskey. I was very pleased when it arrived, and I sampled it for the first time. And the flavor is very nice. Let's see, how do they describe this again? Red fruits. It does have a little bit of a fruitiness to it. Hints of red apple. Yes, I can see that. Berries. Not getting that. Although, what kind of berries? Do they have gooseberries in Australia? Or is that a New England thing? Cranberries. That's a Boston thing. By the coast. Definitely get the grainy texture out of this, which is quite a nice little texture. It doesn't have an excessive kick. It goes down fairly smoothly for a relatively inexpensive whiskey. Maybe things imported from Australia are just not as expensive. I don't know. This is my first ever Australian whiskey. I like this. I could see it having several roles. I'm perfectly happy drinking it neat here. But with that fruitiness in the flavor, I could see it going nicely in a cocktail. It could go nicely on the rocks, although I haven't tried that yet, just to see if the flavor opens up a bit more. Yeah, Australia. Who knew the Australians can make whiskey? But of course, most of them were Irish, right? Sent by England to the prison colonies in Australia. And the Irish, of course, know how to make excellent whiskeys, and they took the skills with them, evidently, as they sailed halfway around the world because someone in England didn't like them. Tragic stories. And when I was first drinking this, I obviously have the dilemma of what am I going to pair it with? I thought immediately of Bryce Courtenay, who has several historical novels around the development and building up of Australia. The Potato Factory is the first of a trilogy, which is an excellent trilogy. Thought of Patrick White, of course, the Australian Nobel Prize winner, and I thought also of Thomas Keneally. Now, Thomas Keneally is most famous for writing Schindler's List, which also became a very famous movie. I read it like 20 years before it became a movie, and it was in a college class on genocide. Excellent story, but this isn't where we're going. It pulls in non-Australian elements, let's say. Matter of fact, there are no Australian elements here. None whatsoever. His most recent book, The Daughters of Mars, was a bestseller. Three Cheers for the Paraclete was good. Flying Hero Class. This book sucked. Okay, I'm being blunt. Didn't like it. Was very kind of stupid. Rivertown, I haven't read that one yet. The Playmakers, I have not read. I have not read A Family Madness. I just picked up Woman of the Inner Sea at a library sale. And Tu Asmara, if I remember correctly, this is kind of about the birth of Eritrea, which was not a bad novel. The two I'm going to focus on today are totally Australian. The Office of Innocence, which is about a young Australian priest around the time of World War II, as Australia is bracing itself for the possible invasion of from Japan. That would be Japan invading Australia. It was a legitimate fear at the time, as Japan was hopping through the various islands heading for Australia. They were stopped, obviously. Anyone who knows anything about World War II history knows they were stopped before they reached there. This story is about Father Frank Darrah. Frank Darrah is the young priest who is struggling with his vows in the reality of wartime. A kind of existential despair. How do you maintain your vows yet still want to do something in the war that you're in? And this is the dilemma that he is facing, and resolves it at the end. There is also a young woman who is in love with him, and they have a chatty relationship. They are friendly and on good terms, and he definitely has feelings for her. And when she turns up murdered, he is the chief suspect. Now, it's not much of a spoiler to say that he didn't do it, because as you're reading the book, you know what he's done up to that point, and then the body turns up and you know it wasn't him. Then he has to struggle with helping a black American AWOL soldier who is charged with the murder of a white woman, which in World War II times and as a soldier would have meant death. So those are the moral dilemmas that he's facing in this background of war. And to find out what he chooses, I'm going to make you read the book. This is an excellent book. It's fairly fast-paced. It's 314 pages. The print, as you see, is fairly large. So it's a very quick read, relatively speaking. The Office of Innocence, that's definitely a thumbs up. Highly recommend it as one of Thomas Keneally's better novels. The other one that I'm pairing with this whiskey, because why not pair it with two books? I have more than two sips. I have more than two whiskeys if I want. Jimmie Blacksmith is the child of an Australian Aboriginal woman and a white man. I don't think we get too much into their relationship at all. It could have been a rape situation. It could have been love situation. But Jimmie Blacksmith as a half-breed, certainly seen that way by the white Australians, wants to become part of white society. He doesn't want to be part of the Aboriginal culture anymore. He wants to be part of Western culture, which of course Western culture will never allow him to do, particularly at the time of the novel. The novel is set in the year 1900, so this is, almost 125 years ago in Australia, which was certainly as prejudiced as we were here in the United States, although they did not enslave the native population. They didn't even sell them to us. He was educated in a Western tradition and wants to be part of that society, but of course he never can be. So he literally, dwelling on this and trying to break through that barrier, becomes homicidal. This is a story of culture clash, but the culture clash takes place in one person. It's a story of not slavery, it's a story of almost genocide. The policies of the Australian government were not as genocidal as those of the American government towards its natives. Yell at me down below if you feel it's necessary. But that's the way it is, unless you're in Florida. This is an intense book. It's a powerful book. It's 178 pages, but as you see, compared to the other book, the print is a lot smaller. So there may be as many words in it as there is in the Office of Innocence. This one has a more obvious moral and maybe a more necessary tale, especially as we are grappling with our past or hiding from our past, respectively. I don't know how things are in Australia, but in my basement, in the United States, Florida just came up with educational standards that have to teach the benefits of slavery. Mind you, there were no benefits of slavery for the black people. The benefits were all for the white people. Slavery was disgusting and destructive. In Jimmie Blacksmith, we see how prevailing attitudes are destructive of a personality. One person is literally destroyed by the overbearing culture that he desires to be a part of, but will never accept him. He does go on to murder people. So there is blood and guts in this story. It's the fight that's going on inside the mind and personality of Jimmie Blacksmith that is breaking out of him and fighting the entire world, or in this case, the entire population of Australia. It's a powerful story. I definitely recommend both of these books. The Office of Innocence is a more contemplative work. The Chant of Jimmie Blacksmith is a much more violent and in some ways more profound book because it's grappling with the past. An Office of Innocence, it is grappling with morality and the discussion of what is moral and how one person, in this case one priest, comes to terms with that. Each of these two people faced with their dilemmas goes in a radically different way because not only are they different personalities, one's white, one is black or Aboriginal, and one is accepted in society and even desired by society, and one is shunned by society. And I think it will take you more than one glass of whiskey to get through these 2 books. Thank you for joining us once again here at Uncle Venom's Books and Whiskey. I'm your host, Ron Rutstein, otherwise known as Uncle Venom. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below to help the channel grow. It is a slow and steady process, but I hope you're enjoying these videos, and I hope you continue to enjoy these videos for quite some time. Thank you very much.